One, two, three, four.
The poet laureate of Murfreesboro this year, and I, I wanted to do some workshops for LGBT youth, but I wasn't sure what that was going to look like until I learned about the Academy of American Poets offers a laureate fellowship with awards ranging from $50,000 to $100,000. And so with that funding, I was like, oh, I could make a really cool series of LGBT workshops if I could find the right partner. So through a variety of emails, I got paired up with Southern Word, and Benjamin, their executive director, was like, we have this poet Simba on staff who would be totally supportive and awesome for this role. And so we just started collaborating to come up with this vision of Write with Pride, which I'll let Simba describe some of the programming since he's been really leading the way and getting it organized.
I've been a part of Southern Word since I was 13 years old. And then I'm a Black trans man here in Nashville. So it was like, why not? This is the perfect fit. So what we've been doing is it's a series of workshops, open mics, and then a culminating conference at the end. So 5 workshops, 3 open mics, and then a conference in April, all virtually right now. Most likely will continue to be virtual throughout the rest of the time. We're trying to find ways to sustain it, to keep programming like this, because it's very much so, it's very much needed. So it's really a community building program. So, I mean, we have plenty of writing programs, but we wanted to build a space, create a space for our queer and LGBT plus youth in ways for them to build community. So outside of just the workshops, I'm also putting together like a resource sheet. Here's some orgs you all can go to, connect with. Here's some representation in the media. Here's all of these things. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now. Our first open mic is going to be November 14th. So we're a little ways through, but we have a few more workshops and a couple more open mics. And then the conference is going to also include some workshops and an open mic portion.
I mean, I think for me, like when I was a younger queer person, like I really found community through what I read. I was very shy, nerdy, wasn't sure um, who I was. And I found my connections through the things I wrote and the things I read. And I thought that perhaps that would reach other people who are trying to sort out what it means to be themselves, especially when they might be growing up in a community or family where being out is not an option necessarily, or at least not a comfortable option. So I did really want the writing workshops to not only be a sort of a place for self-expression, but as Simba had said earlier, a place for community, to let them know that they're not alone and that there are adults as well as other youth who are there to support them and like help them find their way.
There are so many spaces where these young people feel they don't belong. There are so many spaces where they feel that they're not represented. And unfortunately, like we're in the South, right? So has not been a welcoming space for any of us. So to think of youth going through this walk alone, we definitely needed a space for them. And I wasn't worried about people feeling like we were excluding other youth, because it feels like, well, they have all of these spaces. So it's perfectly fine for this space to be for us, by us. That's okay. So that's the why it needed to happen. There needed to be a space for us and by us. And I mean, there are great organizations and more organizations growing to help these youth, but there are not many organizations led by people on the queer and the LGBT plus spectrum. So I thought that's another important part. And why now? Why not? Should have been happening. So yeah.
After I graduated college, I had studied poetry in college, and I felt like, well, what's the point of continuing on studying it? It's just poetry. It's not going to like make the world a better place. It felt kind of selfish to keep studying it. So I decided to become a teacher. I taught high school, and the high school kids were a little too rough on young Amie. And so I was at another crossroads, and I decided to go back to graduate school for poetry. And I remember showing up to like the opening reception of my MFA program and somebody asking if I was one of the poets. And it was like the first time somebody asked me to identify as a poet. And I was like, yeah, I am one of the poets. And it was just kind of a moment of like, instead of resisting sort of my natural urges of what I wanted to do with my life, like actually leaning into it. And I've just tried to keep leaning towards it. And the more I have, I feel like the more gratitude I have for the gifts that it's given me, and the more opportunities I have to grow as a poet and help others grow as in their poetry or whatever it might be.
One, I come from a family of creatives in general. So everyone was either a singer, a producer, a musician, a rapper, a poet. Like everybody was something in my family, but only two of us really went out and like decided to really like go for it. So that's me and my uncle. So since I was like 7, I was watching him in the studio and writing and just coming from a very personal space and like sharing his art. And he would tell me at 7 years old, like, no, you're the one that's inspiring me. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm inspiring this adult right here. I want to inspire more folks. So I was rapping at first mostly because I wanted to do what he was doing. And then I was like 11. There was never an empty journal in my room. My mom was like, usually parents are like, you're going to save your money and you're going to use it. You're going to put it in a savings account or you're going to do whatever. Mom was like, so when are you going to save up for studio time? I'm like, what? Like, you want me to be a rapper, Mom? What? Huh? Like, she was upset that I wasn't using it to like share my art. And I was like, I don't get it. And she was like, you are saying things that no one your age is saying. Things that I don't even say. So like, you need to share that. So I was like, okay, so my voice matters. It means something. And I'm inspiring adults around me. So what can I do to inspire other folks outside of my family? So I was writing raps and I was 13 when Southern Word came into my middle school. And I stood out and Benjamin was like, hey, we have this high school workshop that I think you can come to. You're about to graduate the 8th grade. I think you can stand with these folks. And I didn't realize what my words were doing until I started like performing my poetry. And I had teachers coming up to me and crying, like, I really felt that. Like, I wrote a lot about my dad and my mom and like spirituality and all that when I was a teenager. They're like, I experienced this too. And you changed my perspective on this. Not the students come up to me, teachers come up to me. So I was like, I got to keep doing this. So, and I realized I was speaking for other folks too. So that's why I continued to write, and that's where my journey started, is knowing that I was speaking for others too. When I was in college, that's the 2016 election came around, and there was some stuff happening, and I was thinking, I'm in Illinois now, it's going to be way better than it is in the South. No, not at all. No, I was like, I want to go back to Tennessee. Like, I don't know what's happening here. But I was called to be a campus leader, because like I had a following as a poet. So I was called to speak on issues in general. So I started using my art for more of a social justice purpose, which I kind of started getting into that anyway. But like college, I was like, oh, this is what my art is supposed to be for. So I hope to continue to use it to, one, build community and also educate folks. So I do a lot of research when I'm writing. I do a lot of research on social justice based issues, and like I perform for that. So I haven't really been like entertaining. Well, I have been, but not like for the purpose of entertaining folks. Like, I don't go to shows just to be going to shows. Like, I'm really performing for like conferences here, or a rally here, or I performed at the Women's March like 2 years ago. So that's what I've been doing. So I'm hoping to continue to build community and to educate folks with my poetry.
On one hand, like the work that I create, I hope people find it beautiful, or at least interesting, that it's worth the time it takes to read. And in terms of the laureateship and the sort of community activism piece, after the first workshop that Simba and I led, we had the students or the youth fill out a little survey, and one said, like, I didn't realize there were so many LGBT plus people in Tennessee. I felt not alone. I felt happy. And it was like, mission accomplished. Like, at that moment, I was like, that's but I want just one more person to feel like, oh, I'm not alone. I can be whoever it is I want to be and who I am, and that other people can see me. And just that being seen, I think, is so big. And if I can help someone feel that, that's more than enough.